Middle East history professor here, and I'm honored to be introducing Rana Husseini. I know I will forget, so I'm just going to get the schedule out, that after the talk, there's a reception with lots of food and drinks to be had, and also Rana's new book is for $20, so you can buy that at the end of her talk, and Mike Carroll is the person to talk to after the talk if you want that. Now, I just want to tell you a little story, I guess, because I have a personal connection with Rana Husseini without really knowing her particularly well. That I was living in Jordan in the early 1990s and read the Jordan Times every day, and one day looked down and there was this fairly small article about an honor crime. And it is the exact story you open your book with.
Really?
Yes, exactly.
You were in Jordan?
I was in Jordan at the time, and jolted. And this was the discussion for the next week, and then a couple weeks later or 3 weeks later, she had another story. And discussions got started. That Rana started this discussion in Jordan, and the discussions weren't particularly good at the very beginning about, the guilt or innocence of some of the women at the very beginning when I was in people's houses. But the discussion got bigger, and it got more complex over the years. It's now been in Parliament in Jordan. Rana has won a number of international awards. There are now in Jordan a number of programs for women, for legal rights for women, for shelters for women, that have escalated out from the articles and reporting that she did in the early 1990s. And so I got to watch it more or less from the beginning. So when I read your book, I tell you, that jolt came again when I saw that exact same story that I still remember the details of. So I'm going to just let Rana talk.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Do you need a mic or no need for a mic?
Fine.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much for this nice introduction. Thanks for Boston University for hosting me. The last stop here in Boston. We've been here for 5 days, including a weekend. Anyways, I would like to start by defining what a so-called honor crime is. Maybe you said it's an honor killing. You are right. This is the term that we used when I started, honor killing or honor murder. But after a while, some activists warned me that if we keep saying honor crime or honor murder, as if we are justifying the murder. So basically, many activists try to change the terminology. In my book, I describe it as a so-called honor killing. Some activists would like to call it femicide or honor-related murder. So there are several terms. I will talk for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. I would like to define a so-called honor crime happens when a family of a female relative, in general, because there are some males who get killed, but they're few, decide to kill their female relative because in their point of view she tarnished her family's image and reputation. And this could be by going out with a man, becoming pregnant out of wedlock, choosing her own man to marry, being a victim of suspicion, rumors, rape, incest, sometimes for going missing out of her house, sometimes for financial or inheritance reasons, and sometimes for being caught in a brothel or for losing her virginity. So this is why women get killed. Now, the first thing I would like to point out is that these murders are not restricted to any country or religion or class or nation. They happen all over the world. It's an international phenomenon that has been reported in all religions. UN estimates in 2000 talk about 5,000 women being killed annually in the world in so-called honor crimes. I thought the number back then was underreported because you have suicide, accidental deaths, and disappearances that I'm sure many of it are attributed to family honor, and I'm sure that the number now is much higher than what it was before. Of course, many of the work that was done also not only in Jordan. In Jordan we did a lot, and we'll talk about it now. But there was work done also by activists in Pakistan, Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq. These places really, and the activists really addressed this issue on many levels. Of course, how I started, you're right, I started with the story of a 16-year-old schoolgirl who was murdered by her family. It was a small news item that I read in the newspaper, and when I went to investigate, I discovered a horrific crime of a 16-year-old schoolgirl who was murdered because she was raped by one of her brothers. Now, this is like not a typical everyday story in Jordan, but this was the story that happened to be the one that pushed me to do everything I did. When I went to investigate, I discovered horrific details that went on in the short life of this girl. She was raped by a brother. He threatened to kill her. She told her family because she became pregnant. He tried to kill her. She survived. She underwent a secret abortion, and then she was married to a man 34 years older than her. Then 6 months later, this man divorced her. On the day he divorced her, another brother killed her, blaming her for the rape. When I went to talk to the uncle, they basically accused her of seducing her brother to sleep with her. So at that time, I felt that the society really tended to blame women for everything. So I reported the story for the Jordan Times, and the following day we received a call from an intellectual Jordanian woman who was screaming and yelling at my editors that they should stop me from reporting these crimes because this is not us or our society. So I became even more enraged that the call came from a woman, and I decided to show her and show everyone else that this is our society and we have problems that we need to face. Of course, at that time, no one was really talking about the issue. It was taboo. It was rarely reported in the press, and if it was reported in the Arabic press, it would be like a small item. A man killed his sister, police are investigating. Nothing more, nothing less. Then I went to the courts, and I discovered that killers who killed their female sisters were getting away with lenient sentences. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year for killing a female relative in the name of family honor. Maximum 7.5 years if the court decides it's not a so-called honor crime. So this was another outraging fact for me. So I also decided that I wanted to report about these court cases. I wanted to be the voice of the women who were actually being deprived the right to live. I said at least have somewhere reported that these women lived on this earth and someone robbed them from their life. Then I went to the prison to write a story about women, and I discovered that there are between 30 to 40 women who are imprisoned for their own safety because of fear that the family might kill them for reasons related to family honor. So we had this number of women basically who are in prison without a charge. Some of them have been there for over 10 years, wasting their life, wasting their youth, because the state wants to protect them. So I also decided that I want to focus on these women. Now, of course, when I started reporting, people were telling me, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're preaching the believers, because I write for the Jordan Times, it's an English daily. No, nothing's ever changed in this country. But I didn't listen to them. I believed what my heart told me, what my instinct. And I knew that the Jordan Times was read by the government, the royal family, the decision makers, the diplomatic corps in Jordan. So I said, I'm going to keep writing and bugging people in hopes that something will happen. Of course, a lot of people started writing letters to the editor, voicing their dismay about these crimes and the verdicts. And then in 1998, I was nominated for the Reebok Human Rights Award. And this award is given here in the US for 4 individuals in the world who are 30 years or younger for their work on human rights. This award unfortunately does not exist anymore. But when I came here to receive it, it was a very glamorous celebration. Celebrities, Glenn Close gave me the award, and everything was fine. But for me, the most important than the glamour was the fact that I discovered that I was not only a reporter, I was also a human rights activist. So I came back, and the responsibility grew. I appeared on some documentaries here, or channels, CNN, ABC, and so forth. They did documentaries about so-called on crimes, and I was in them. And this brought a lot of attention to Jordan. So when I came back to Jordan, the government decided that they wanted to change one of the laws that offers leniency to killers. In the meantime, a group of young men and women approached me and said, let's do something on the grassroots level. So we started meeting. We were around 30, and we decreased until we became 11. We were meeting on a regular basis every week, trying to discuss what we wanted to do. We were 7 women and 4 men. So we decided that we wanted to raise the society's awareness, collect signatures to give to the lower house so that they will scrap the laws that offers leniency to killers. So we were going around in the kingdom to various places, talking to people. We printed a brochure that had on one side the names of the victims, and on the other side some facts. And we were talking to people. We managed to change some people's minds, others we couldn't. But Our activities drew a lot of attention from the media and women's groups. They started doing activities, and we were lecturing everywhere, and the newspapers started writing about us. Some of us applauding our efforts. Some of them, of course, the columnists were accusing us of being Western agents and so forth. But the thing what happened was then is that the taboo about this issue was broken forever. The lower house basically did not pass the government decision because there was a lobby against us and they accused us of being Western agents and that this is coming from the West. But what happened is that there was a big dialogue in the society, and now we are receiving the benefits of what we did. Now everybody, when you talk to anyone in the street, everybody knows about so-called honor killings. It's no longer taboo. So we broke that taboo. People are more aware of that. We pushed the government to acknowledge that there's a problem. In the past, the government tried to deny the problem or deny the numbers. Now government officials talk about real figures. They admit we have a problem. And when you succeed in having the government admit there's a problem, then you can hold the government accountable. So this was one important thing that we broke. The other taboo we broke was the taboo to be able to express ourselves as citizens, because for the longest time people were afraid to sign petitions because they might get harassed by the security forces. So people, because they really wanted to make a difference, they signed the petitions, and we broke this taboo as well. And people now, they do petitions more. We had a public rally to the lower house, and there were 2 male princes with us. They led the march. So it was really exciting moments at that time. Of course, the spotlight on this issue encouraged the British government to support a 5-year project in 2000 called the Family Protection Project, whereby they trained judges, criminal prosecutors, police, forensics, physicians, everyone dealing with domestic violence on how to deal and detect cases of domestic violence, how to examine cases of suicide or accidental deaths. They were able to expose many cases as being murders, and also to take the murder of women more seriously. Because usually what happens if a man kills his sister and then he turns himself into police with a weapon, so to the police it's a solved murder. And a lot of times it's not reasons related to honor, it's other reasons that they try to hide. So on that regard, things are very good. The other thing is that they opened a women's shelter. It's a demand that we have been calling for the longest time. In 1998, there was a minister who was really excited about the idea and wanted to open a shelter. But unfortunately, he was changed, and then we had 5 or 6 ministers after him. And some were afraid to open a shelter. They said it's going to be looked at as a brothel. Others were excited, but by the time they decided to do it, they were changed. And finally, we got a brave minister in 2006, and they opened the shelter. It's no longer called a shelter because the term is sensitive, so they call it Family Reconciliation House. And it's basically was supposed to also house the women in protective custody, but the government decided against it. So now there's an individual NGO that is trying to help them on an individual basis, and hopefully in the future the government will look into their case, because before I started reporting about them, really nobody knew these women existed. So this was something very important. Of course, the media has been very active in reporting about these crimes for the past 6 or 7 years, reporting constantly on domestic violence and child abuse, issues that was never tackled before. Molestation, drugs, even virginity, all these issues that have been considered taboo for the longest time. And this year in specific, there has been a lot of debate in Jordan again on so-called armed crimes and violence against women. The king spoke twice in 1 year about violence against women and children being a red line. I mean, this is unusual for a head of state to speak about violence against women, but this shows you really that the work that we did on the grassroots paid off, and our work basically attracted or encouraged other countries. For example, Syria has been very active on the issue for the past 4 or 5 years. For the longest time, they would say they don't have a problem. Now, the NGOs there are very active, and their president also, in July of this year, came out and spoke against violence against women, and they said they are changing laws. I was in a conference in Pakistan in 2005, and it was about domestic violence. And it was opened by President Pervez Musharraf, and he also condemned so-called honor killings. So, I mean, this is something very important, that activists all over the world are pushing the politicians to acknowledge the issue of domestic violence and violence against women and children as something important, and not to keep it at the end of the agenda of the politicians. So these are the good things. More recently, in July, the Criminal Court of Jordan, we have 5 tribunals. So they decided that they wanted to designate one tribunal to try only cases of so-called honor killings. And while I was here in the US on October 13th, the criminal court handed a man a 15-year prison sentence. That's the highest sentence a man received in Jordan so far. And this is a very good sign. And most importantly is, usually in Jordan the law allows the family of the victim, regardless of the murder or the crime or the felony, to drop charges. So usually if it's 15, it becomes 7.5 years. So it's always like, in these cases, if it's 15, it becomes 7.5. If it's 2 years, it becomes 1 year. If it's 1 year, 6 and 3. So the court rejected the family's request to drop charges. And this is like a very important sign that hopefully things are moving forward. In Jordan, of course, they've been trying for the longest time to promote women on in many ways. We have around 40 or 50 female judges. They are not like in the highest court still. They designated a quota for women, 6 seats in the parliament, in the lower house. And this time, 1 woman won outside the quota, so we have 7. And we have also 7 female senators. They're trying to put women in all walks, and we have 3 female ambassadors. Even we have female directing the traffic. And this is off the topic, but I was appointed at the Jordan Football Association, which is soccer here, known as soccer, in charge of the women's soccer program in Jordan. We have a women's team, national team in Jordan. We have teams that have been there for 6 years. They're competing on the Asian level. Hopefully one day we'll beat the US. I don't think so. But no, you have the best team actually. But no, I mean, they are trying in all ways to push women's rights forward. And this is, this should always give people hope that you should always fight for what you believe in. Don't think that your work will go in vain. As I said when I started, you said I started alone, but the things that happened after that really is really amazing. And which leads me to my book before I conclude. In the book, I focus a bit on Jordan's experience because I think it's a very important experience to document how we did it, the successes, the failures, for history's sake, for any activist who wants to do some similar work to learn from our experience. And of course, I focused on the countries that I told you about. There's a chapter on the world, chapter on Europe, chapter on the US, and chapter on the UK. And there's a chapter about this Jordanian woman who wrote a fake book about Jordan, basically slandering Jordan, Muslims, Christians, and Arabs. And we exposed her, and the book was pulled off the shelves. And the book finally ends with a chapter that has conclusions and solutions. And the reason I wrote the book, there are many goals, by the way, for the book. First of all, is to shed light on this issue, because I think domestic violence is a problem that needs to be constantly addressed. It's not something that should be seasonal. 1 in 3 women get subjected to some form of violence in her life, according to the UN. It used to be 1 in 4. Here in the US, Ministry of Justice officials informed me when I was here that around 1,400 women are killed every year here in the US by their partners. This is 3 women a day, and violence against women is spread all over the world. So I really think that it's something that needs to be constantly addressed. We need to always shed light on that. Of course, I want to raise awareness, document efforts of people all over the world. I also want it to be a credible source and reference for anyone who wants to know, including students. Every year I receive dozens of emails from students, 20 and 30 questions asking me about this issue. It's almost impossible to sit and answer everyone. So now there's a book out there. Anyone who wants to learn, hopefully it will be a good resource for them. And finally, of course, I want it to be a warning sign for women, because it's filled, by the way, with cases. There are a lot of women who think they live in safe environments. Maybe by the stories, or they know others, by reading the stories they can warn others. And of course, the ultimate goal, and of course, there are a lot of women who are subjected to violence, and they think they are alone, and or there's no one there out there to help them. The book shows really that there is a lot that can be done. And of course, the ultimate aim is hopefully to try to save lives. I know I have did in the past with my activism and lecturing, and I hope that I will continue to do that. And thank you very much.
I meant in my introduction to actually bring up that book that was the hoax, that whatever that was about 2003.
I try not to mention it that much.
Exactly. But I can't tell you how many people came up to me in around 2003 or so, whenever that book came out, and said, "Oh, have you read it? It's
just
great."
Just before the war in Iraq.
Okay. And I read it, and it was clear that it was a hoax. I mean, it just had things about Oman and Jordan that didn't make any sense. And then when I got to Jordan a couple months later, I heard that Rana was fronting the campaign to uncover this hoax. So thank you very much.
Too many campaigns. It's called Honor Lost by Norma Khoury.
And then it had another name when it popped up
in Australia, Forbidden Lies. And basically she's a Christian who comes from a strict Christian family, and she's friends with a Muslim from a strict Muslim family, which is impossible to happen to start with. They opened a unisex saloon shop. We don't have unisex saloon shops in Jordan. And her Muslim friend fell in love with a Christian man, and her father killed her. And Norma stood up for her for her murder. So Norma's life was in danger, and this never happened. I've never reported a case of a friend being under threat because she defended her friend. Of course, the book has 75 factual errors and generalizations about Arabs and Muslims, and the terminology used in the book, it was very obvious. It came out just before the war in Iraq, and Norma, God bless her, she was going around lecturing that they should liberate Muslim women from this oppression, which is the usual terms and the usual sentencing that is used by countries when they want to justify a war against another country.
So what happened once she became adult? Did she respond to that?
She continued to claim that the story is false. It never happened, and nothing that is in the book is correct. Everything is wrong. Everything, geography, legal, life in Jordan, whatever you want. She said Jordan is bordered by Kuwait. Jordan is not bordered by Kuwait.
Wasn't there a river that goes through?
The river goes through Amman. It doesn't go.
Can't. Yeah.
Everything, whatever you want. She said Christians cannot build higher buildings than Muslims in Jordan. Christians have to pay taxes to live in Jordan. Christians cannot sound church bells. Poor you, Christians. Well, you were oppressed, right? In Jordan?
Every time.
And she was basically saying that life in Jordan was a stifling prison for women. They could not do anything. They could not make a choice. And her poor friend, her name is Daria, this poor woman, and her mother and female relatives used to cook food and offer it to men and then eat the leftovers. It's like as if, it's worse than Taliban. It's worse than the Dark Ages, And many mistakes. Jordan Times, it's a weekly newspaper. Many things. With the judiciary, she talked about Jordan having a jury system. We don't have a jury system. She said that the father will never be locked up in prison. This is not impossible. Every person who kills, they have to go through the legal procedure, which is arrest, many mistakes. And the terminology, in the book, all Arab men, all Muslim men, and it's very clear. And just came out before the war in Iraq. And she's American, but I don't know why she needed an asylum visa to go to Australia. And Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, helped her get a visa supposedly to Australia. I don't know why she needs it. Yeah, and then she went to Australia and she was lecturing everywhere in Australia about how they need to liberate Muslim women from the oppression. And her book was a bestseller there, and a lot of people, and it was a bestseller all over the world. She got translation rights to 17 languages. She's not known; nobody knows who she is. All of a sudden, she gets the highest. She gets to get published at Random House, and there's the biggest two Random House, another one, two publishing, the biggest publishing house. And she's nobody. She used to write poetry. All of a sudden, she becomes this authority, and in Australia they were saying that she basically helped shape the public's acceptance of the moral war against Iraq because she was going around and saying.
So don't read it. rolling around somewhere.
There's a chapter in my book about how we expose her, and what I'm telling you is in the chapter, and there's more, of course. And you know, the emails I got, because she put my email at the end of the back book for people who wanted to voice objection. My email and somebody else, we were the most who worked on the issue. And the email, you should see the emails we were receiving from people. You are barbarics, you are terrorists, you call yourselves a modern country, you know, all kinds of trashing emails, basically.
Okay, let's open it up.
I was wondering if you said the laws were lenient towards the honor killings. Are these Sharia laws, or are they laws from? Is there a dual court system in Jordan?
Yeah, the laws basically are derived from the Napoleonic Code, which they are Western laws. They are not derived from the Sharia. Most of the penal code laws in Jordan are derived from Western laws. Okay?
So there's no dual?
No, the Sharia does not allow for killing. You have to have, it's very complicated procedure, and you have to have 4 witnesses to an act, and even these 4 witnesses have to see really the intercourse in their eyes, and they have to all be good witnesses, and if one witness says something different than the other, they get punished. And even if it's proven, it's not the individual who will take the law into his own hand, but rather the ruler. And in this case, I mean, the Sharia law is only for issues related to marriage, divorce, and it's not related to penal.
I have 2 questions. One is, so what is the sentence for a non-honor killing that you said to get away with, like 3 months?
Yeah, if it's a premeditated murder, it's the death penalty. Okay? And if the family drops charges, it becomes a life imprisonment. Now, just to point out something about the death penalty, since 2006, Jordan has not executed anyone, although there are some people who are being sentenced to death. But the rumor is the king does not want, he's against execution, and he's not signing. Usually the king has to sign the executions. And since 2006, there has been debate going on in Jordan about the death penalty and if they should scrap it, so they shouldn't, and so forth. Now, if it's a manslaughter, then it's 15 years. If the crime is committed in a fit of fury, and this is how most killers get away with these murders, they pretend, of course, it's premeditated, but then when it goes to court, the lawyer tells the suspect, don't say this. If you say this, you'll get a high sentence. Say that you did not know about your sister's behaviors, you were away, and then while you were walking back home, men were telling you, what's this, put your sister, lock her up, she's a prostitute or whatever. And then he gets home, he's so enraged, he sees his sister, he tells her, what's this I hear? She tells him, it's none of your business, I'm free to do whatever I want, this is my body, this is my sexual organs. So all of a sudden all these women become rebellious, and the men are always armed and ready, and they kill their sisters. So this is how they play around it in court.
It's the same here. We call it crimes of passion.
Yeah, crimes of passion. Yeah. Second question.
Oh, yeah. Okay, my other question was, like, what relationship? You didn't mention Islam at all, but like a whole bunch of us came because we were sent from an Islam class. So, do you want to like just divorce honor killings from Islam, or? I mean, as
I said, I mean, I don't know if they sent for this reason. It's up to them. I don't know who sent you, but these crimes basically occur in all religions. It's not restricted to one nation, one class, one country. In Jordan, I have reported about 6 or 7 Christian women who were killed in a so-called honor crime in my 16-year experience. The same happens in other countries in the Middle East. Maybe you would think it's an Islamic thing because obviously, in the Middle East, 95% of the population, they are Muslims. So whatever we do, it's going to look much higher than any other country. These crimes were also in Italy. There are men in the past 2 years who reportedly killed their sisters. They're Italian men, not immigrants, who killed their female relatives or sisters because they became pregnant out of wedlock. In Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, these murders have been reported among the Hindus, the Sikhs, and the different faiths they have there. And in Iraq, there was a case of a Yazidi woman who was stoned to death 2 years ago. And Yazidi is not, it's a separate religion, and it's basically they derive most of their teachings from the Christianity. So basically, these murders have nothing to do with any religion. Unfortunately, people misinterpret this or think or try, or they want to believe that it is part of Islam. It's not. These crimes have been reported since the ancient civilizations. The ancient civilizations used to punish both men and women for adultery, sometimes only women. The Romans, for example, used to consider women the property of their families, the father, and then when she's married, she's the property of her husband. The Hindus, the Mano law, used to punish women only for adultery. And if you travel through history, women have always been punished for adultery. In the Dark Ages in Europe, they used to burn women and consider them witches or scar them. Until the early 1900s, here in this part of the world, women always were punished for committing adultery.
And I mean, the Sharia law, at least it's like for both men and women.
Yes, in the Sharia law, you know, God put a very, according to the Sharia, God put a very, it's an impossible thing to accomplish. Where are you going to find somebody having sex and people, except the porn? Other than that, where are you going to find that? It's almost impossible. And the Sharia also says that if something like this happens, God orders people to hush the situation, to close it, to try to resolve it without exposing the matter, without resorting to murder or anything. But unfortunately, there are people who misinterpret the religion to their likings or to their belief or understanding.
You said these crimes are committed because the family believes their honor was tarnished. But is there any sense that if a family member is imprisoned or sentenced for murder, does that bring any honor on the family? I know there's really no logic.
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, and this has been like something that we noticed. For example, in general, and it's not a rule, but when a man commits a murder or any other problem that puts him in prison, usually 95% of the time the families will put the best lawyer. They will try to help him. They will visit him regularly in prison, bring him food and so forth. Meanwhile, the women, of course, that I told you who are locked up in prison, nobody ever comes and visits them, as if they do not exist.
I wanted to point out, before you started reporting, I know of a Christian family in Jordan that this happened, and the brother went to jail for however long he went to jail for, and he came out and immediately got married. They married him off, and I always thought, ooh, he's a find. He's the kind of guy I want for sure. But yes, there was no stigma to him at all, but to her family, there was.
You were talking about how these crimes against women happen in every country. Do you think they need to be addressed within the specific social and political context of each nation, or do you think there's a universal?
I think if you want to accomplish advancements and try to help and be positive, we have to address the issue of domestic violence in a global perspective. Okay, you have to approach it in a global perspective, then you can talk about specific things. But it's not going to help, it's not going to solve any problem if you go there and attack a certain country or attack a certain religion. All you will win is backlash and rejection, and you will not be able to achieve anything. So the best way is to address it from a global perspective, because each and every nation has its own problems. And for example, in our part of the world, the issue has always been, okay, look, although I disagree with this argument and I refuse to use it, but a lot of times they'll tell me, what are you saying? Look, you're talking about this. Look, in the U.S. every minute, a woman is raped. Okay, I mean, it's too bad, but does this mean that we have to turn our backs and go because in the U.S. they have their problems? Each country has its problems, and we have to address it from a global perspective to make a difference.
I just wanted to comment maybe on one reason why people do connect it with Islam. I'm just going to read to you from Umdat al-Salik, which is a manual certified by Al-Azhar as reliable guide to Sunni orthodoxy. It says retaliation is obligatory against anyone who kills a human being purely, intentionally, and without right. However, not subject to retaliation is a father or mother or their fathers or mothers for killing their offspring or offspring's offspring. That's a manual certified by Al-Azhar, which is the highest Sunni school of learning.
Al-Azhar, you mean?
Yes. I'm just telling you why potentially people might think it has something to do with Islam.
It's possible, yeah. I think there's another thing. I think that here in this part of the world and elsewhere in the West, every time something is committed by a Muslim or Arab man, he's immediately labeled by his identity and religion. For example, you do not read if a man, a regular man here in the US, killed his wife, for example. You don't say, oh, this blah blah blah, Christian or Jewish or atheist or anything. It doesn't. They don't identify with the religion. They only identify with the religion only when it's an Arab and Muslim. The shooting, for example, in Texas last week, it was constantly. They constantly pointed out that he's a Muslim, and they even brought images of him. Although I can tell you, I'm certain it's not him because the dress he's wearing. This is not a dress that is worn in Palestine or Jordan. It's a Pakistani dress, but I don't know why, or they decided to show it this way. Meanwhile, if you remember the shooting at Virginia Tech, this Korean student, we never knew what's his religion. They never mentioned what's his religion. Is he an atheist? Is he a Christian? Is he we do not know. So unfortunately, the media in this part of the world plays a negative image in the way they show Arabs and Muslims, and always, whenever there's a documentary, they always go to the worst places in the Muslim world. They show all women are covered. I'm a Muslim, by the way. They always have to show that all Muslim women are covered, and all men walking with beard. It's always like the most horrific scenes, and we have to live with it, unfortunately, and just try to clarify whenever we can.
Bernie Madoff was constantly identified as a Jew. Just pointing that out, that it's not just Arabs and Muslims who are identified. I think it's anyone who's not the dominant religion or anything that's different is identified. It's not specifically Arab or Muslim.
Yes.
I just want to come back to this question. I think Madoff maybe was the only person that was referred to in terms of his religion. That's because perhaps his crime was so egregious and it affected so many people.
What did he do? I'm sorry, what did he say?
I mean, he just embezzled. This is the guy that he basically ruined millions of people's lives.
The one who stole the money? Okay.
But I want to come back, if you don't mind, because I want to elaborate on what you said. What he said, first of all, the fact that this may be in some books doesn't imply that all Muslims believe that. Some, may taken from the importance of fathers and the rights that fathers had, even the mothers over their children, doesn't condone murder, but it just says that, okay, the father has so much right of life because he begets life, so he has the right to have a child to, under his control. But what I was just going to, I don't know exactly what I was going to say about this particular right. But anyways, what is important, and what you just very rightly said, that, it is always this particular pointing a finger at Muslims, whereas that honor killing is, or honor crimes, which I think is a much better term. He said, here we observe that every, week or so we hear about a man who gets upset or kills his wife or child, or this man who just kidnapped another girl, helped her for 18 years or whatever. But the fact that, what I was going to say, that even in this country, until in the early 19th century, and in fact in some states like Texas until the 1970s, you had a particular legal right for men that was called fem code or fem, I forgot exactly, the law of feminine, basically. That's can't remember the exact term. That meant two things. One is that women are not really responsible for the crime they commit their husbands on. Two was that he had control over her. So it was very important to realize that this law was so important in this country that was in place. And in Texas, until recently, in fact, they had the law that if a father killed his daughter, or a man watched his wife in the act and killed her, he could get off. So there were these laws that were in books, even in this country, and that's because I teach a course on legal anthropology. So we come across these laws that are, in some states were still in place in the book. So it is, as you said, not unique to a particular religion, but one particular case gets blown up.
Do you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the reason that maybe Islam is kind of you said it's in the media and it's always discussed. It might have to do with the fact that the people that commit some of these crimes, they justify it and frame it in Islamic.
Yeah, but I've never basically in my 16 years I've never covered the story of a man who said he killed in the name of religion. Never. Actually, there was a killer. I interview a killer in my book, and I tell him, I said, he's a Muslim. I said, you know what you did is against our religion. He said, I know it's against the religion, but culture and tradition is stronger than me. And when I go and meet God, I'll discuss it with him.
So is it just more tribal culture?
Yeah. I never came across any story whereby someone said he killed his female relative and said it's in the name of religion, regardless of any religion.
You mentioned that women are becoming political, and 4 women are now senators. Could you Could you put that in context of the number of senators?
Yeah, there are 55 senators. 7 of them are women, and we have 110 deputies, lower house, and 7 of them are women.
Thank you.
Anything else?
In Al-An channel, you said that we tend to blame the others for our mistakes.
And I will continue to say that.
What moves, I think that's really hard to change as a concept. What moves did you do in Jordan, since I'm from Jordan also, and I know that's true, so what moves did you do and what did you accomplish in that context or in that area? What moves did you do to change
What moves? I think what you have to do is just to continue to talk about it. I mean, whenever there is someone who would say, I mean, the other day I was interviewed at the radio, and a man called a station, and he said, I will kill my daughter if she did something wrong. So I told him, I said, listen, I want to tell you something, and I'm directing my words to anyone who thinks of killing his female relative. First of all, you sit, wait, and ask yourself where you went wrong. If you think that your daughter did something wrong, you are responsible, not your daughter. Okay? Because you are the older person, and you should ask yourself where I went wrong. If you think that your daughter did something wrong, it's unfair for you to go and punish the younger person. Okay? So this is how you have to keep talking about it. You have to keep talking about cases. You have to have, by the way, you have to have men also on your side. In the book, I talk about this very important experience. It's called the Sharaf Heroes or Honor Heroes, whereby men in Sweden were going around and talking to other men about the need to respect women and not to kill women. So, I mean, it's not a fight between men and women. On the contrary, it has to be a fight next to each other. And when I started reporting and going out and lecturing in Jordan, I used to have men who would raise their hand and tell me, so what? I would kill my sister if she did something wrong. But because of all the activism and everything that we are doing, and a lot of things that have happened and changed in Jordan, now I have men who stand up and say, let's do something, we need to fight the law, this is not right. And 2 years ago I was at a public lecture. It was my first lecture. Usually I know who my audience are. This time it was a public lecture, and I thought I was a bit nervous. There were 300 people, and when we started the debate, questions and answers, I had 2 young men who stood up and said, we know that killing our sister is not right. Help us. What can we do so that we will avoid being this if we are put in the situation? So in a way, I think that some of the men who kill are victims. I don't think really any man wants to kill his female relative, the one he grew up with and loved. But unfortunately, the social pressure, the society, the family, the neighbors, the family comes to the man, and usually they choose a younger man. You have to do it. If you don't do it, people look down on us. You have to. It's like hypnotizing. So basically, the family turns a normal human being into a killer. And this is the problem. And I bet you most of the killers will never live in peace inside them, because it's abnormal to kill someone. It's really abnormal, So that's why I always focus on that. I focus on the need to strengthen dialogue among family members. And I always say that wherever I go, in Arabic and English, my book is going to be translated into Arabic. It's going to be out next month in Arabic. So hopefully, and the hope is of course to try to change attitudes, to raise awareness, for people to read and learn. And hopefully people like you will go and tell others.
Is a lot of the opposition that you get from the Jordanian people that have commented negatively about what you're doing, is that because they feel that you're bashing their culture or their religion? What is, basically my question is, what do you think the main reason behind why women from Jordan wouldn't support you in what you're doing?
Well, in general, there is support. Okay, there are people who are against my work, men and women, but basically it's mostly the conservative people. Basically, it was the parliament, and of course you have to know that women and children's issues are always politicized wherever you go. So they will always try to fight women and children's issues on the expense of other things. And of course, the accusation we received is that we wanted to sexually liberate women and encourage them to commit adultery and so forth.
I was just going to ask you to clarify something that you just mentioned in another answer. You said something about, I'm assuming I kind of misunderstood this. I take a little bit of issue with you mentioning that in a woman doing something wrong, that the man should examine himself and say that it's not her fault, it's his. Is that what you meant to say?
I'm not saying a man, I'm saying the family. You know, the thing is, when they want to kill, the family sits and they decide that they want to kill a female relative, for example. If they think, okay, that their daughter did something wrong and they expected something else out of her in her life, they should blame themselves, okay? Not blame her. If they think that their girl, their daughter is a liar, okay, or she steals, do you go and punish her, or you think where was I? Maybe there was something that I missed, okay? And always, I mean, if you have a younger sister, do you think you should punish her for doing anything, or you should try to help her? She's young. She doesn't think like you. She's not as old as you are.
I guess that's what I'm asking is, are you speaking this as a young, I guess a young child, or not a mature woman thing?
I don't understand the question.
I'm sorry. I'm misunderstanding where you're coming from, but I'm feeling like that woman should have that agency and have the ability to make those decisions.
I do agree with you, but if they think that their daughter did something wrong, they should ask themselves. Okay. According to what they want. I'm not saying, of course she's free to do whatever she wants. But if he thinks that his daughter did something wrong, he should ask himself. Okay, you question yourself, and then you talk to your daughter, and you don't kill her.
Oh yes, of course.
Okay? That's the whole thing. That's the point.
Do you find that I was thinking about something you said earlier about when you're preparing to speak somewhere, and possibly there's obviously a different audience, or there's a different forum, or somehow circumstances are different everywhere you go, and do you find that that you necessarily, so one thing I'm thinking of is that it would be different to come here to, let's say, Boston University and say, you wouldn't necessarily maybe say outright, it's wrong to kill someone in your family, because it seems that from where we're sitting, like, well, of course, somebody kills someone in your family, I would never do that. But do you find yourself being in that position of having to go somewhere and explicitly say things like that? Does that seem odd? Does that seem like something where you have to sort of put yourself in a different mindset, because now you have to go somewhere and say it's wrong to do this thing that obviously inside you know that's really wrong? Is that different?
I usually, this is how I talk everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
Be it in Jordan or outside Jordan. This is the kind of lecture I give everywhere. So, and even sometimes when I go to talk to families or people who are in the area where the murder happens, I would discuss it with them. I would discuss it with judges. I would discuss it with everyone I know. This is how I talk to everyone.
But here we might not even consider what she did as being bad. So
yeah, I know that.
Not even, you can't even take that as a.
I didn't say what she did was bad. I said if the family thinks that.
Yeah. No,
I'm not saying that she did something wrong.
Good response to that.
Yeah.
Well, then why didn't you? If you thought that was so bad, then you should have taught her not to do that. It's very clever.
Yeah, the thing is because that's what you were saying. The problem is in our part of the world, and this is, I think, a big difference between here and there. People in our part of the world, it's very for them to throw things on others. That's what we are. Okay, it's the fault of Israel, it's the fault of the U.S. And we apply it on many other things. Okay, that's what he was talking about.
I'm wondering about the men taking responsibility for the actions of the women, but do they take similar attitudes towards the actions of like their sons and other men, feeling like it's their responsibility to guide them or to punish them?
I don't know, maybe you should answer. You're from Jordan. No, but I mean, in general, there's some sort of a double standard. Men can do whatever they want, and women cannot. So you see this, and somebody asked me about the man. If the man is in prison, the family would put the best lawyer to try to bail him out. So you have families that are trying to raise their children on an equal basis, but still the patriarchal society is dominant, and it basically treats men differently than women. And we have to work on it.
I just want to ask a question about the technicalities of putting the book together. How long did it actually take you to
5 years.
Wow. And then you mentioned that when you started doing this political activist work, what you were talking about was seen as taboo. Did you reach a moment when you thought that maybe I shouldn't be doing this in terms of the opposition and the way they addressed you or responded to your...
No, because I mean, I've always been, on a personal level, I never cared what others thought of me. I always did what I believed in. No, it didn't stop me 1 minute. And I don't care, they can say whatever they want. If they want to say I'm an agent, killing a woman does not need somebody from the West to come and tell you it's wrong. It's not, it doesn't need a genius, And they can say whatever they want. It's they're free to do whatever I want, and I'm free to do whatever I want as long as I'm not harming anyone.
Okay, one more question and then we'll break for reception.
You speak specifically about killing your sister.
Female.
Female. Any female, like grandmothers? Mothers?
Mothers, basically. Mothers. Basically, the number one victim is the sister. Usually, in these crimes, the number one victim is the sister, followed by the mother, the daughter, and the mother, the aunt, the cousin, the nephew. Then it goes like this. But number one, the sister, the daughter, the mother, the aunt, and then you go to other female relatives.
But seniors are protected somehow?
I've never covered the case of a very old woman. There was only one case of a woman who was 60, and she got married against her family's wishes when she was 20, and she went to live in a different country, and then she came back when she was 60, and she wanted to meet her family, thinking they would forgive her, and they killed her. This was the oldest woman to be reported to have killed in Jordan in so-called.
All right, thank you very much. There's a reception.